So yeah, just kind of myth bust through the kind of key basic facts of apprenticeships. So they are essentially the same as full-time work. So they are a job and they just have structured formal training as part of that job. There are over 850 standards, and by standards we mean like the course basically, so the job title, the course, the apprenticeship, the standard, that all kind of means the same thing in this case. So that's across lots of different levels, roles and sectors. So I learned a huge amount. Joined WorkWhile about 2 years ago and had no idea how many apprenticeships there were out there and how relevant they are to so many businesses and sectors. So that's really something to explore. You can see all of them on the iFate website. If you haven't had a look through, it's really interesting to see. And they are full-time work, as I said, so 30 plus hours a week. It is possible to do part-time apprenticeships, but they're a lot less popular. And we recommend full-time where it's possible. So we recommend that they are paid the same as a regular employee with the same benefits, so someone at the same level. And we recommend living wages as well as part of the work that we do from a retention perspective, but also from a well-being perspective as well. And that formal training that's part of the role is currently a minimum of 6 hours a week. So it's roughly 20% of their time they spend in off-the-job training. And off-the-job training itself is something that can come in lots of different forms, which I won't kind of go all through during the session, but it can be anything from shadowing, working through written assessments, listening to learning online, being part of workshops. So loads of things that you might, read up on or kind of do as part of your role normally. When you're doing an apprenticeship, those are all integrated into something called a training plan, which leads you to the endpoint assessment at the end. So all of the syllabuses that are part of apprenticeships are industry-led and industry designed, which is fantastic. Quite often, some other training courses don't have that, where, it's been designed by someone who might not even work in that field. So lots of employers come together and make sure that these standards are up to date and accessible in the modern workplace. And yeah, crucially, they can be for new recruits and also existing staff. So we see a lot of businesses interested in getting new apprentices in, but you can also use it to upskill any of your current employees. And in that case, you're already paying that person their wages. That's kind of one barrier that you've already overcome. And then you just need to figure out how they can take on that training as part of their role and allocate the time for it. And then they can get a qualification whilst working as well. So apprenticeships go all the way from level 2 up to level 7. So level 2 being entry level, equivalent to sort of GCSE, and then up to level 7, which is a master's. And as I mentioned before, they end with endpoint assessments, which is basically just the observations and any kind of written assignments or exams that are at the end. Skipped over one there. So just to talk a little bit about the apprenticeship levy. So the apprenticeship levy is UK, English policy for apprenticeships, which basically creates the funding that covers the training cost. So the apprentices' wages would need to be covered by the employer, but the cost of the actual training element, which is the money that would go to the training provider, this is what we would call the apprenticeship levy. And in England, the policy is to collect that from large businesses. So for any organisations that pay over 3 million a year, 0.5% of that annual payroll is ring-fenced into something called apprenticeship levy. And essentially they can spend that only on apprenticeships and apprenticeship training. And what that means is that lots of large organisations are creating apprenticeships within their organisations, which is fantastic. But it also means that they can transfer this if they've got unspent funds. So a lot of the time, if they're really, really big companies, even if they have a full-blown apprenticeship scheme, they might still have some left over, and actually they can now transfer up to 50% of that to smaller businesses where it has more of an impact and they might have normally had to go down the co-investment route. So for SMEs, so that's any organisations with a payroll of less than 3 million a year, so roughly up to about 250 employees. The normal route would be to pay 5% of the training cost for each apprentice. But what WorkWhile specialise in and what we really encourage is accessing levy transfer. So getting those funds from a larger business. We provide that service end to end. And so we encourage as many SMEs to create apprenticeships and get 100% of the cost covered through levy transfer. There has also been some changes in government policy recently, which means that anyone that's 16 to 21 years old, when they take on an apprenticeship, their training would be fully funded by the government as well from the new financial year, which is great. But yeah, anyone over that age, we're more than happy to find donors and get them in place to cover the training cost as well. So just to talk a little bit about WorkWhile's packages of work. So we work in a few different ways. The main aim of what we do is to support SMEs to create apprenticeships and good quality apprenticeships. And so we do that through end-to-end support. So my role as program manager and my colleague AJ's role as a senior account manager is focusing on working with SMEs. We meet with them, give one-to-one tailored support on Teams, on email, on the phone, etc., getting them set up to be able to deliver apprenticeships. So understanding the basics, walking them through which is the right course for them, which is the right standard, finding the right training provider, and then helping them with all the kind of admin associated with that, and creating an online account, which is what you need to access the funds, which is called a digital apprenticeship service account. So we can help with all of that as well. On top of that, we offer the transfer brokerage service. So that's what I was talking about earlier. So for SMEs, we match them up with levy paying organisations that can provide 100% of the cost of the training. And for that, we just gather a few basic bits of information about the SME and work with them to support them through any recruitment issues or any enrolling stuff that we might be able to help with. And then at the end of that, getting them matched up with a levy donor and getting everything done on the online account that needs doing. On top of that, we've been able to offer 2 other work strands that we've had funding for since we developed from this original method, which is line management training. So we can now offer a developmental program to all SMEs. So actually, we've had quite a lot of success with this already, really good feedback. We've had 100% of participants' feedback that they've learned something from it and implemented some changes. So developmental is aimed at the line managers of apprentices. And it means that those supervising young apprentices have got the right leadership and management tools for objective setting, for managing difficult conversations, and being able to feed that back into the way that they work with their apprentices, which is great. So we offer that at no cost to the employer. And then we also have a knowledge sharing network, which is a series of webinars that we've done, obviously quite similar to kind of what we're doing today, but talking about the key different things we've learned in terms of recruitment, in terms of embedding, onboarding, kind of financial questions, well-being questions, so that we can share best practice with businesses in our network. I've just got here some examples of some of the large organisations that we've worked with as levy donors. So all of these businesses you can see here, some of which are quite household names you'd recognise, like Amazon, Asda, lots of the local authority organisations as well, and yeah, quite a few across kind of construction and facilities management world, as apprenticeships are very popular there as well. So all of these organisations have donated unspent funds to us, which we've been able to give to small businesses where we can track the impact. So yeah, we're very proud of our statistics. So LPC, as we were originally known, which is now WorkWhile, launched back in 2020. So since then, we've managed to create over 1,750 apprenticeships. This is across 400 employers, or over 400 employers. And there's £15 million of unspent levy that we have redistributed. So that's not even everything that's been pledged to us. That's everything that's gone out the door and made a difference to apprenticeships and apprenticeship starts. Brilliant. And rather than me talking to you about the benefits for the apprentices themselves, I thought it'd be best to hear from some employers and apprentices. So I'm going to very quickly try and switch over to a video now, so bear with me.
Well, having the support of the LPC means that I was able to offer apprenticeships across the board to all of my staff. We're a very small business, so without that support, we probably wouldn't have been able to offer the apprenticeship to all the staff, which would have been a real shame because it's made a huge difference.
I think the biggest difference the LPC has made to us is making it much easier to manage the apprenticeship journey. We weren't necessarily that clued up about how to go about it, so to have that support with a partner who can guide us through the process was massive.
They've just really helped facilitate a smooth process for a company that was brand new to apprenticeships and knew very little about it. The LPC came in and gave us that support system to answer any questions that we needed and help facilitate different processes that we didn't have in place already.
And then the success of the apprenticeships perhaps would have either not come back as quickly or perhaps not at all without the LPC's help.
The LPC specifically has supported us with gaining the knowledge that we didn't have. The LPC specifically has supported us with gaining the knowledge that we didn't have previously, especially around the levy transfers that are available to small businesses.
The levy transfer, for me, really removes the only clear obstacle why you wouldn't. With that available, at that point, it's really win-win.
It's completely changed our method of hiring. We entered the apprenticeships realm essentially saying, why are we only hiring graduates? And we realised there's a huge pool of talent that we hadn't tapped into.
Apprenticeships are really important, especially in health and social care, because people need experience in the area of working first, and that's what we've done.
I think apprenticeships are a great opportunity for businesses to diversify their talent pool, especially in the digital industry. You don't need to have a degree to complete some of the responsibilities of job roles.
We want to offer opportunities for the staff that maybe they haven't had or haven't thought about. So apprenticeships is the way.
Thank you very much. I'll just go back to sharing my screen. Brilliant. So yeah, I wanted you to hear from them rather than myself for some of this, but that there are raising staff morale, reducing staff turnover, increasing diversity. So we see apprenticeships a really, really key way to get different age groups, different genders, different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds into your organisation that you might have not had before. The benefits of that are really endless. And in terms of getting fresh ideas into the business, in terms of making sure it's benefiting the needs of the modern workplace, and yeah, basically just getting more perspectives into every decision that you make is always a good thing to have. Up-to-date industry-led knowledge. So I've talked about the courses being structured around industry and perhaps even things that directors or MDs might not be aware of or might not have been taught when they studied these subjects before starting businesses is being brought in by apprentices, which is really good to see. You can attract the best staff. It does show through the stats around apprenticeships that retention is improved as well. So apprentices are genuinely more likely to stay for longer in your business than a regular employee or a graduate, for example. And there's improved productivity within that as well. I think the others in the room, so training pride perspective, would agree that apprentices are really, really keen, have lots of high energy, and are really keen to learn as much as possible on the job and be exposed to lots of different areas of work as their kind of entryway into it, which is always good as well. So beyond the benefits to employers specifically, we've also got a kind of wider societal benefits in these cogs around the outside. So from a kind of wider England-wide perspective, apprenticeships are really gaining popularity. You probably hear about them in the news sometimes. Like it's being talked about a lot in Westminster. There's been some really key changes in policy recently. So obviously being levy payers being able to give away more of their funds, also more younger apprentices being funded by the government. And also we're getting parity with undergraduate degrees, kind of regular degrees from universities, because we're listing apprenticeships alongside those different options on UCAS. So it's definitely not something that was a thing when I was at school, but it's absolutely fantastic to see now that people have those two different pathways right next to each other, so that it's there when they're making those really key decisions about what they want to do next after studying. So it funds what we like to call the everyday economy, which in kind of other terms is those really core sectors that keep our country moving, things like construction, things like early years, hospitality, like health and social care, things that we all rely on and kind of take for granted sometimes even are really benefiting from apprenticeships. And so we want to copy that and make sure it's being used as effectively as possible. It also creates a debt-free career progression opportunity for those young people. So at the point that someone's thinking about potentially going to university or doing an apprenticeship, they could do a degree apprenticeship, for example, where they get a degree qualification at like a level 5 or a level 6, and they could come out of that with absolutely no tuition fee debt, which is amazing. And not only would they not have any debt, they'll also be earning money as a full-time employee during that entire time period, which is a fantastic route. And we've had some really great case studies of people being able to like learn to drive on it, buy cars, you know, being the first people in their family to own property by taking that route. So that's really something to consider. We also believe it's a key pathway for those that have been affected by COVID, which is still, you know, still having repercussions today. We know that through the kind of job market and what the expectations of young people are and their kind of lack of work experience that they might not have got during that time. So it's a really good way for people to enter the workforce that might not have been given everything that those who were able to study not during the pandemic had. And yeah, for those larger organisations, excuse me, that have the levy themselves, they can spend it on small businesses, and that helps meet their CSR and ESG goals. So that's corporate social responsibility and environment sustainability goals as well. Brilliant. So I talked a little bit about this already, but if you'd like to join our knowledge sharing network, anyone on this call is more than welcome to join. It's open and free. We also offer our own webinars across different areas. So just some examples of ones we've hosted before across the side there. And we've really actually been able to make some great connections with other not-for-profits, with potential levy donors and also other small businesses that are interested in apprenticeships through this network. So would recommend discovering any of those. If you're interested, you can always pop either AJ and I a message and we can add you to the mailing list for that. And then this is just a little bit more detail on the line management training, which I mentioned before. But you can see that feedback down there, which I always think when I show looks a little bit like we've made it up, but it's 100% true. It is all 100% that feedback. And we've got a case study there about one apprentice who was very close to not completing their apprenticeship due to lack of kind of understanding and communication between them and their line manager, and the course actually changed that for them, and they're now taking initiative and feeling a lot more confident about what they've got to complete for the course, which is absolutely what we wanted to see. We also recommend fair pay, which I've touched on already, but the reason behind that is because we believe it does attract the best candidates. We believe that they'll stay for longer when the pay being offered for the apprenticeship is higher. Obviously, real living wages have a lot of their own arguments for why this is needed, just so that people can sustain life and work at the same time, and reduced absenteeism as well. And then, I mentioned already the kind of benefits of diversifying the workforce, but this is something that we fit in with all the work that we do. So we really make sure it's as accessible as possible. We talk about non-gendered language in job applications, thinking about things like blind recruitment, making sure that it's getting out to those with any SEND requirements, which they are fully funded to support as well. So there's money out there from the government for those who need any accessibility requirements or tools, and other kind of tech solutions. Like, it can all be funded as part of Access to Work. And we're really proud of helping a lot of apprentices from some of the poorest boroughs of London. Lots of people are out of unemployment or part-time work, and lots of young people. And we've had a few apprentices identify as having a disability that we've supported as well, which is fantastic to see. And Jo, I will leave you with that. I think that covers everything I wanted to, and yeah.